I read 100 books this year, and I'm gonna share with you my top recommendations that you absolutely have to add to your reading list. And at the end, I'm gonna tell you my secret hack for how I read all of them for free. So the beginning of this year, when I set a goal to read 100 books, I was like, okay, this is a little aggressive, this is a little excessive. The most I've ever read in a year was last year. I read 24 books. Honestly, my goal was just to really enjoy stories, to challenge my creativity, to learn a lot, to expand my knowledge, and to be inspired and encouraged by the consumption of a lot of different books. I'm gonna share with you my top 10 favorites across 3 different categories. I've broken it down into nonfiction, memoirs, which I know are nonfiction, but you know, they're gonna be their own category, and then fiction novels. I read a lot of books that I enjoyed this year, but I tried to pick the top 10 that just really, like, looking back on the year, these ones truly impacted me. I kept thinking about them after I stopped reading them. They changed the way I see the world. These ones you gotta read. All right, book number 1, Love Does by Bob Goff. Discover a secretly incredible life in an ordinary world. This book is incredible. Love Does is a collection of stories from Bob Goff's life, and this man, his approach to living and life and family and friends, serving people around him and sharing the love of Jesus, it rocked my world. It's such an easy read. I definitely recommend listening to this one on audiobook because he is such a good storyteller, and because it's so many stories, it's just so fun to hear him like actually narrate it. After I finished this, I told Katrin immediately, you need to listen to this book, and we couldn't stop talking about it. It truly changed the way we thought about our lives, and I'm convinced it changed the experience we had this last year and what we said yes to and the things that we did. Number 2, Winning the War in Your Mind by Craig Rochelle. Change your thoughts, change your life. Holy smokes, that's exactly what this book did. I inhaled this book. I couldn't stop. If you are not new to this channel, you have heard me talk ad nauseum about how important I believe our thought patterns are. In my own healing journey, in my approach to health and wellness, in my breaking free from disordered eating and body image, it all comes back to my thoughts and just learning the power of my thoughts and controlling my thought life. I love how it is very biblically based and biblically sound, but it is so practical. Whatever it is that holds you back in your life, you have to realize it starts in your thoughts. And this book will just absolutely change the way you experience your everyday because it changes the way you experience your thoughts. All right, number 3, I kind of had a hard time deciding between The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry and Garden City, both of which are by John Mark Comer. The reason I'm gonna just bundle these together, both of them are really a challenge to modern society and culture, really challenging the way that we think about how we define success, where our priorities are, the pace of our living. Ruthless Elimination of Hurry, I feel like it's kind of obvious what that's about. The consumption, the media, the need to always do more and be places and have so much on our calendars and not having margin in our lives. Really great study of Sabbath. That's something that Katrin and I implemented this year. Literally changed our lives. That's not an exaggeration. Garden City does talk a lot more about work as well, not just the rest, but like finding purpose in your work. It really did shift a lot for me. I feel like I should say for all of these books, I'm not like co-signing on everything that is said in them. I think there's certain philosophical and theological differences that I might have with John Mark Comer, but truly changed the way I approached the pace of my life this last year. And I just know that I ran at a much more sustainable pace because of how these 2 books helped me shift my priorities. Number 4 is Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell. The story of success. What makes people, businesses, cultures, systems successful? What are the underlying factors? I love this. Uncovering the secrets that separate the best from the rest. Now, memoirs. This is a fun one because a lot of what I found I loved reading this year was listening to audiobooks that were memoirs read by the author. I mean, it's kind of like listening to a really great podcast conversation, but it's even better. I don't even know how many memoirs I listen to, but I listen to a lot. These 3 stood out to me as like, holy smokes, I could not stop thinking about them. The first one is Hope Heals by Catherine Wolfe. Oh my gosh, I was a puddle. I was like sobbing listening to this story. It's actually written by both Catherine and Jay Wolfe, her husband. Switches off between their perspectives. Shortly after they were married, she suffered a catastrophic stroke and she's now paralyzed. They say, we're disrupting the myth that joy can only be found in a pain-free life. Oh my gosh. I mean, to hear what this woman has overcome, this family has overcome, the hope and joy that they still have in the midst of suffering. Everyone needs to read this. It made me so thankful for my own suffering and my health journey, because number one, I went, this could be so much harder and so much worse. And it's just so inspiring to see how they've taken one of the absolute worst things that could ever happen to you, like just a literal nightmare, and turned it into the most beautiful story and example of hope. Another memoir that just knocked my socks off, Finding Me by Viola Davis. I think she is one of the most outstanding actresses I've ever seen. Oh my gosh, this woman has overcome so much. It is so beautifully told. Again, listen to these on audiobook if you can. To hear her tell these stories about growing up in a home with no heat and water in true honest poverty and how she's come to where she's at. I have such a new appreciation for her as an actress and roles I've seen her in after hearing about like her life and how that pain and suffering shaped this woman's perspective and how she can emulate these stories on the screen. Like it was amazing. And the third one, all of these are kind of intense memoirs, but I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy. Wow. I mean, I don't even know what to say. Like, I feel like I can't talk about this book. You just have to go read it. Trigger warning for sure. It's very intense. She suffered intense abuse and trauma. I was just captivated by her storytelling. I'm so amazed at how this woman has grown through very terrible trauma. Her ability to stand on the other side of it and to have some humor about it. I could not put this one down. All right, now my favorite category, fiction. No question, my favorite thing to read. I am a sucker for a good like murder mystery thriller. I like to be hooked. I will say I feel like a lot of my actual favorites in this category I've read in the last few years, but these three were really good. After the End from Claire McIntosh. I've shared in a previous favorites video, I Let You Go by Claire McIntosh. That's no doubt still one of my favorite books I've ever read. But After the End was amazing. This is a novel about a husband and wife who have a son who is terminally ill. They are battling the decision whether or not to fight for his life with this intensive experimental treatment or to stop trying to treat him and to let him live out his final days in joy and peace and to just enjoy their time with their son. The husband and wife are at disagreement over how to proceed in this decision, and the novel switches off each chapter basically playing out how both of those scenarios go. It is so compelling and so captivating. It's just like such a human story. You put yourself in both of their shoes. You can totally understand why couples would make both of those decisions. Another heart-wrenching one was Small Great Things by Jodi Picoult. She is an author that I fell in love with as a teenager. I've read a ton of her books, but this is, I think this is a brand new one that just recently came out. This is a story about an African-American labor and delivery nurse who helps deliver a baby for a white supremacist couple. The storylines behind what informed these people's life experiences and the meeting in the middle, and I could not put it down. And finally, book number 10. This is the closest to like my kind of favorite book, just the thriller. Did she die? Did he kill her? Murder mysteries. Local Woman Missing by Mary Kubica. I don't know if that's how you say her last name, but oh my gosh, this is one of those that like I picked it up and I didn't stop reading. It's so good. It's of course about a local woman who goes missing. Actually, there's multiple missing people in this story. I have read so many of these kinds of thrillers. I've actually gotten like way too good at guessing what happens. A lot of the time I'm like, he's it. I know you're trying to steer me to that, but I know that it's that guy. This book, I did not see that plot twist coming. I was so shocked. If you want to get into reading, if you're like not much of a reader and you want to read more, this is the kind of book you should start with because you will just not be able to stop. All right, those are my top 10 books that I read this year. If you want to know everything I read and all the other books that I enjoyed and what I rated them on a scale of 1 to 5, you can follow me on Goodreads because that has been one of my favorite tools on this 100 book reading journey. The app is such a fun way to keep track of the books that you're reading, the books that you want to read. You can set your goal in the app and it will constantly show you how you're doing on reaching your goal, if you're ahead or behind. It's just a fun way to like keep track of what you've read, what you want to read. Every time I hear someone mention a book I should read, I just immediately go in and add it and know that it's on my list. But even though Goodreads helped me in my reading journey, there's one app that actually made it possible for me to read/listen to 100 books this year entirely for free, and that is Libby. All you have to do is have a library card from any local public library. Come into Libby, you add your card information, and then you have access to rent any book from the library without going to the library. You can get a digital copy for your Kindle reading. Well, I read on my Kindle. You technically could just read it in the Libby app if you want to, or in the Kindle app on your phone. I do love my Kindle. You guys know that. There is no way I would have been able to read 100 books this year if I didn't have a Kindle, because as soon as I finished one, I automatically downloaded another and just got started. I constantly had it with me. It makes it so easy. I love also that when I'm out, my Kindle app on my phone syncs with wherever I'm at in my book. So if I'm reading in bed at night on my Kindle device, but then if I'm waiting at a doctor's office the next day and I'm sitting there and I'd rather read my book than scroll Instagram, I can open it up and jump right back into where I'm actually at in the book. So good. And probably the best part of this whole thing is you can listen to audiobooks on Libby for free. I used to pay like $15 for an audiobook on Audible. Come on, it's literally free, and there's no limit. I mean, it gives me 10 books at a time. I can't have more than 10 books rented at a time, but like, when do you need 10 books at a time? Seriously, you have access to all these audiobooks and e-read books for free. If I would have gone on Amazon and bought these books or rented them on Audible, it would have averaged me probably like, I don't know, $9 to $20 a book times 100 books. I just saved myself like over $1,000 this year by using the Libby app. I would love to hear what your favorite books are in the comments below so I can add them to my reading list so I can work on next year's goal. I don't know if I'm gonna shoot for 100 again. That was kind of aggressive. Like, that was a lot. I enjoyed it, but I might scale myself back a little bit. But I do want to keep reading. So drop your favorite books below. Let me know if you read any of these, or if you do read them, come back and tell me what you think. Happy reading, friends. I'll see you in the next one.